Ilani stood at the edge of the hall, her hands shaking as the voice of the announcer echoed through the tall metal walls. Next selected for human pairing, Ilani of the Aurelian line. Gasps filled the room, and she felt every eye turn to her. Her heart dropped, her vision blurred, and for a second, she forgot how to breathe. She had heard the rumors all her life. Humans were monsters, brutal and loud. They had rough hands, angry hearts, and strange customs, and now, she was supposed to become one of their mates. Ilani's mother rushed to her side, holding her shoulders gently. "My star, stay calm," her mother whispered, though her own face looked pale. "This is an honor, they said." But no one ever came back to tell what really happened. Some said the girls sent to humans vanished forever. Others claimed they were treated like pets. Or worse, slaves. Ilani's people, the Aurelians, were quiet and graceful. They believed in stillness, in peace, and soft voices. Humans were the opposite of that. And now, she was going to be handed to one. Ilani's father, a respected council advisor, stood frozen. He didn't say a word, didn't fight the decision. Even he couldn't stop the will of the Galactic High Council. "Mother, I don't want to go," Ilani whispered, tears filling her big silver eyes. "You don't have a choice," her mother answered, breaking inside as she said it. No one refused the council, not unless they wanted their whole family punished. Later that night, Ilani sat on the cold floor of her room. She stared at the stars outside the window, wishing she could just fly away. A small bag was already packed: ceremonial dress, translator chip, nutrition packs. She hadn't packed it herself, of course the officials did. The door buzzed, and her little sister peeked in. "You're leaving tomorrow?" the girl asked. Softly, Ilani nodded, not trusting her voice to speak. "Will you come back?" "I don't know," she whispered. The next morning, as the twin suns rose, Ilani was brought to the embassy. The building was tall and dark, with heavy silver doors. Guards in dark armor stood at every entrance. She felt like she was walking into a prison. Inside, the air was too cold, and everything smelled like metal. Her feet made soft tapping sounds on the shiny floor as she was led to a waiting room. A smooth voice came from the wall speaker. "Please wait, your assigned human is arriving." Shortly, she sat on a bench, hands on her lap, eyes on the door. She imagined a tall, scar-covered man with a deep growl and sharp eyes. She pictured someone with no patience, no kindness. Someone who would drag her by the arm and say, "Mine." Ilani looked around for possible exits. There was a vent near the ceiling. Maybe she could squeeze through. She moved quietly to the wall, climbed the side table, and opened the panel. Her heart pounded. Her breath came fast. She reached into the vent and began to crawl. Just a few more meters and she could hide in the cargo bay. But then, the door below her opened with a soft sound. "Ilani?" A calm male voice asked. She froze in place, legs halfway in the vent, arms trembling. "Please come down. You'll get hurt," the voice said again. Not angry, just patient. She looked down and saw him. The human. He wasn't as tall as she thought. No scars, no harsh face. He wore a simple black jacket and held a small bag. His eyes were a strange shade of green, not cruel, but curious. He didn't shout, didn't step forward to grab her. He just waited, hands at his sides. "I'm Rex," he said, "and I think we're supposed to meet today." Ilani blinked, unsure what to say. She slowly slid out of the vent, landing lightly on her feet. She stayed near the wall, tense, watching him closely. "I know this is strange," Rex said, "and I don't want to scare you." He looked around awkwardly, then added, "They didn't tell me much either. You don't want this?" Ilani finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Rex shrugged. "What?" "I don't know, but I'm not here to hurt you." He pulled something from his bag and placed it on the table, a sealed drink bottle and a soft protein bar. "Thought maybe you'd be hungry," he said, stepping back. Ilani stared at the food, then at him. This wasn't what she expected. This wasn't what she feared. She didn't move closer, not yet, but a thought crept into her mind like a quiet Breeze, maybe the stories were wrong, and that thought alone scared her more than anything. Asterisk. The silence between them stretched like a bridge over deep water. Ilani stood still, heart racing, unsure if this was a trap dressed in kindness. Rex didn't move closer, didn't force a smile, just waited patiently like someone who had all the time in the world. She finally stepped toward the table, her steps light and cautious. Her eyes stayed on him as she reached for the protein bar. The wrapper made a soft crinkling sound as she opened it. She sniffed it first, then took a small bite, her eyes narrowing with confusion. It was sweet, soft, nothing like the rough survival food she expected humans to carry. Rex watched her with quiet interest, his arms crossed but not in anger. "I didn't poison it," he said suddenly, a crooked smile tugging at his lips. Ilani's eyes widened. "I mean, sorry, bad joke," he added quickly, rubbing the back of his neck. She tilted her head, trying to read him. That smile didn't look cruel, just nervous. Was he afraid too? They were taken to the shared quarters not long after. The room wasn't a cell, it was too clean, too bright. There were 2 beds, a small table, and even a view of the stars. Ilani kept her distance, staying near the window while Rex sat near the door. He didn't stare at her like she was a prize or possession. He looked tired, like someone who had seen too many wars and not enough peace. She expected him to talk too much like other humans were known to do. But Rex stayed mostly quiet, letting her explore the room at her own pace. There was a small screen panel on the wall with entertainment options. He didn't touch it. He didn't ask her personal questions. He just said, "You can rest or eat more if you want," and left it at that. That night, she stayed awake while he slept. He didn't snore, didn't mumble, just breathed evenly as he lay curled under a thin blanket. She noticed a long scar on his back, one that twisted across his shoulder like a burn. It didn't look like a warrior's pride mark, it looked like pain. She sat in the far corner, hugging her knees. The room was warm, but her thoughts were cold. Why was he being kind? What did he want from her? Was this a game? A trap? In the morning, she awoke to the smell of something warm. Rex had prepared food using the station's replicator. He handed her a plate, not saying a word, then sat across the room and started eating his own. She waited, watching him chew slowly, before finally taking a bite. It was simple food, no strange spices, no weird textures, just normal. Later, as they walked together through the halls for their medical check, she caught others looking. Alien girls whispered, some with pity, others with jealousy. Ilani ignored them, but Rex noticed. "Are they your people?" he asked. Softly, "Some," she replied. "Some wish they were chosen. They think humans bring power." He looked surprised. "Do you?" "I don't know what to think yet," she answered truthfully. She expected him to be upset, but he only nodded, as if that was fair. Not once did he try to impress her. He didn't show off his strength or talk about his rank. He acted like a man with nothing to prove, and that confused her even more after the tests. They were told to wait again, more scans, more interviews from the Alliance Watchers. Rex sat beside her in the waiting room, reading something from a small device. Ilani peeked at the screen and saw photos of alien children, smiling, playing. One photo showed a small child hugging Rex's leg, laughing. Ilani leaned closer, surprised. "Who is that?" she asked quietly. Rex smiled. Her name was Ika. "I saved her colony from raiders." "You don't seem like a soldier," she said. "I'm not really," he replied. "Not anymore. I was tired of shooting." Ilani stared at him. The human she was told would dominate her, scare her, control her. But here he was, sitting beside her, reading stories to remember laughter. He looked nothing like the monster her people described, and yet, a part of her still held back. Trust wasn't something that bloomed in a day. That night, as she lay on her bed pretending to sleep, Rex spoke softly from across the room. "I know this isn't fair to you," he said. "I don't want to force anything." Her eyes opened, staring at the ceiling. "I won't touch you, I won't claim you, unless you want me to." Ever, he continued. Then why did you agree to this? She asked. There was a pause, a long one, before he said, because I thought maybe someone needed protecting. Ilani turned to look at him. He was already asleep again, and for the first time since her name was called, she didn't feel like running. Ilani didn't mean to dream of him, but she did. In the soft glow of artificial starlight, her mind drifted into strange dreams. Dreams where the human wasn't her mate, but her shield, not a monster, not a captor, but someone who stood between her and everything dark. She woke up confused, her hands curled tightly around the blanket. The silence in the room was broken only by Rex's calm breathing. He was still asleep, his arms stretched across the bed like someone used to being alone. She turned away quickly, angry at herself. Why was she imagining him as someone gentle? Why did she care about the sound of his breathing or the tired way he smiled? That morning, a loud knock shook the door. An official voice said they had to attend a trust exercise. A human and alien matched pair were to complete a survival simulation. Together, Ilani's pulse jumped. Was this another trick? A real test disguised as training? Rex stretched and rubbed his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept well. But he still offered her the first ration from the replicator. She ignored it, pretending she wasn't hungry. He didn't push, just ate quietly by himself. They were taken to the outer fields of the station's training dome, artificial terrain, glowing with pink grass and sharp blue trees. Ilani glanced at the fake sky above, then down at her wrist where the tracker blinked. She was told if she finished the trial, she would be allowed to make a request to the council. Freedom was on the table if she survived, if she passed, if the human didn't ruin everything. The challenge started, and they were left with limited tools and a strange map. They had to find hidden items and make it to the beacon point before nightfall. Rex held the map, but didn't take charge like a commander. He simply looked at her and said, "You lead if you want, or we can take turns." She didn't reply, but she started walking. He followed without a word, his steps quiet. Behind her, as they moved through uneven land, Rex suddenly stumbled. Ilani turned just in time to see him fall hard against a rock. Blood ran from his knee, staining his pants. But he laughed softly. "Guess I'm not perfect after all." She should have kept walking. That's what her training told her. Never rely on a wounded mate. But something inside her pushed back. Without speaking, she ripped cloth from her scarf and tied it around his leg. Rex stared at her, surprised. "Thank you," he said, the words simple but warm. They moved slower now, but they kept going. Hours passed, the sun dimmed, shadows grew longer. Ilani began to feel the first bite of fear. What if they didn't reach the beacon? They stopped near a crystal cave to rest. Inside, the light reflected off the walls and made her skin glow silver. Rex sat beside her but didn't touch. Instead, he pulled out a small object, an old metal tag with names scratched into it. "My old squad," he said. "They're gone now." She didn't know what to say, but Rex continued. "Once I thought killing was the only way to protect others," he said slowly. "I was wrong. Most of what I protected ended up broken anyway." His voice didn't sound heroic. It sounded tired. Ilani looked at him and saw not a brutal man, but a sad one, carrying more ghosts than victories. Later, as they reached the final stretch, a sudden noise made her freeze. Something moved in the trees, part of the simulation, maybe, or something more. Rex stepped in front of her without thinking. His body shielded hers, arms raised, ready to fight whatever came, but nothing jumped, nothing attacked. It was just wind and fake creatures moving in loops. Still, he didn't lower his guard until she stepped beside him. "Why did you do that?" she asked. He looked confused. "What do you mean?" "You stepped in front of me." "Of course I did," he said simply. They reached the beacon just as the artificial sun began to fall. Their names flashed on the screen, survivors, but Ilani wasn't thinking about victory. She was thinking about the way he stood between her and danger without hesitation. Back in their room, she sat silently for a long time. Rex didn't ask questions, just gave her space, before lights dimmed. She finally spoke. You are not what I expected." Rex looked up, one brow raised. "No horns or fangs." He joked. "No chains or cages," she whispered. He didn't reply, just nodded. She turned away quickly, hiding her face. She didn't want him to see how her heart was starting to believe something it wasn't ready for. She had seen a different side of the human, and that scared her more than any monster story ever could. Asterisk. The small capsule felt heavier than any weapon Ilani had ever held. She stared at it in her palm, the silver surface shining under the soft ceiling light. It was smooth, silent, and deadly. A single drop placed in his food or drink, and the human would stop breathing within moments. Her communicator blinked red again, the same cold message repeating. "Do it tonight, or never return home." Ilani sat frozen on her bed, knees pulled to her chest. Across the room, Rex hummed quietly while fixing something at the table. He was trying to repair a cracked mug he liked. He said it reminded him of Earth. Every time he spoke of Earth, he smiled like it was a memory wrapped in sunlight. She wondered if Earth was even real, or just a story humans told to sound peaceful. She clutched the poison tighter, her chest twisting. Rex glanced at her, noticing the tension in her face. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded quickly, not trusting her voice. He didn't push. He never did. Dinner was quiet, just the sound of utensils and soft breathing. Ilani barely touched her food. Rex didn't ask why, he just offered her his last bread. "Roll." She shook her head, her throat dry. He smiled anyway and said, "More for me." The moment came when he left the table and turned his back. He went to get something from the shelf. The mug sat untouched on the table. This was it, the perfect chance. She reached into her sleeve and held the capsule, fingers trembling. Her people were waiting for confirmation. They were watching. She had been raised to obey them, to protect her race first, but this wasn't war. This man had never raised a weapon against her. He offered food, safety, even freedom. Ilani stared at the cup, her breath caught in her throat. She moved her hand, hovered over it. Her people's voice echoed in her mind. "Do it. He is a threat." But in that same moment, Rex turned around and caught her eyes. And he smiled, not a clever smile, not a smug one, just a soft, tired smile like he trusted her completely. The capsule slipped from her hand. She clenched her fist and dropped it into her pocket. She would not do it. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Rex noticed her sudden change and tilted his head. "You sure you're all right?" he asked again. Ilani nodded and stood up, walking to the disposal bin. She dropped the capsule in. Watching it disappear, Rex didn't ask what she had thrown away. He just said, "You don't have to carry anything heavy alone." That night, the room felt different. She didn't hide in the corner. She lay on her bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking of the message waiting in her communicator. They would know, they would punish her, but for the first time, she didn't feel afraid. The next day, when they walked through the gardens of the station, Rex showed her something hidden behind a tall tree. He had grown a small patch of green life, flowers from his home, earth blooms mixed with alien roots. Ilani knelt down and touched a petal. It felt like silk and soil and something almost magical. "You made this?" she asked quietly. "Piece by piece," Rex said, smiling. "Every time I had free time, I brought something back." She looked up at him, unsure how to understand this human. He was supposed to be a warrior. He was supposed to demand and dominate. Instead, he grew flowers in secret. She stood up and looked at him closely. "What do you want from me?" she asked suddenly. Rex blinked, confused. "Nothing," he said. "Unless you want to give something." She narrowed her eyes. "No tricks?" "No chains," he said. "No pressure." Later, when she returned to their room, she found something. On her bed, a book written in both human standard and her native tongue. Inside was a message written by hand. "I thought you might want to know more about me, so I'll start by showing you how I speak." Ilani sat down slowly and opened the first page. It was a story about Earth, not a military story. Not about battles or strength. It was about a girl and her dog who waited for spring. And somehow, reading that soft story, Ilani felt something begin to grow inside her. Not love, not yet, but a crack in the wall she had built so high around her heart. And for the first time, she didn't dread the next day, she waited for it. The explosion didn't give a warning. It came like thunder through steel walls, shaking the entire corridor where Ilani stood. She dropped the datapad in her hands as alarms blared through the station. Red lights flashed, the ground trembled, and screams echoed from far away. Within seconds, armed soldiers rushed past her, shouting commands in every language she didn't understand. Ilani turned around, searching for Rex, her chest burning with fear she didn't want to admit. He had gone out only minutes earlier to grab something from the medical wing. Now he was out there, in this chaos, while she stood helpless in there. Shared room. A second explosion cracked through the lower floors. Smoke began seeping into the hallway vents. She ran, following the path she remembered from earlier drills. Her hands trembled as she opened door after door, calling his name. Then she saw him. Rex stood in the middle of the med bay, carrying a wounded alien girl in his arms. His jacket was scorched, his face bleeding from a small cut, but his eyes still burned with focus as he shouted, "Move! I need help here!" Ilani rushed to his side, helping him lay the girl down on the bench. "I told you to stay in the room," Rex said quickly. "You didn't come back," she replied, her voice shaking. He opened his mouth to say something, but then froze. Behind them, two Aurelian enforcers stepped into the room, weapons drawn. They weren't here for the injured. They were here for her. One of them pointed at Rex, his voice sharp and cruel. "You poisoned her mind, human." "What?" Rex blinked, confused. "She was ordered to eliminate you. She failed," the other said, looking at Ilani with disgust. Ilani stepped between them before Rex could speak. "I didn't fail," she said coldly. "I chose." The room fell silent. Even the wounded girl on the bench stopped crying. The two enforcers exchanged a glance. "You've disgraced your family," one of them spat. "Then I'll build a new one," Ilani answered without flinching. Rex moved beside her, standing shoulder to shoulder. The tension was thick like smoke, and for a moment, Ilani wondered if they would have to fight. But before anything could happen, a command came through the station-wide speakers. "Stand down. All units." It was the High Council's voice, cold, metallic, and final. "All blame is under review. Any action against registered pairs will be punished." The enforcers paused, growled low in their throats, then backed away. But the message had been sent loud and clear. Ilani was now seen as a traitor. Her people would not forgive this. Back in their room, Rex said nothing for a long time. He cleaned the cut on his forehead quietly while Ilani sat frozen on the bed. Finally, he broke the silence. "They were going to kill me, weren't they?" "Yes," she whispered, "and maybe you too." He sat down across from her, elbows on his knees. "I'm not mad," he said softly. She looked at him, surprised. "I'm not," he repeated. "But why didn't you run when they came?" Ilani stared at the floor, the weight in her chest growing heavier. "Because you didn't run when things got hard," she said. "Because you shielded me when something moved in the trees. You gave me food, space, choice, and even a book." Rex smiled faintly, then looked down. "I'm sorry they did this to you," he said. "I'm not," she replied. "Not anymore, outside." The fire teams cleaned up the damage. Inside, two people who were supposed to fear each other sat in silence. Not as enemies, not as strangers, but as two lives thrown together by force and slowly, unexpectedly, growing into something else. When the council called them the next day, they were given a choice. They could separate and return to their original worlds, or they could remain under neutral protection as a bonded pair. Ilani didn't speak right away. She looked at Rex, waiting for him to answer. He met her eyes and said, "I'll go where you go." The council waited, impatient and cold. Ilani stood tall and said the words that would change everything. "We stay, *. They thought the truth would stay buried. But lies rot faster than silence, and someone, somewhere had heard enough. The transmission hit every major station in the quadrant. A hacked broadcast, played without warning. Suddenly, every screen lit up with shaky footage and a robotic voice. Narrating the unthinkable, the so-called mating program wasn't for peace. It was a tool, a silent weapon. Ilani stared at the flickering screen in the common hall as the truth spilled out. The High Council never wanted alliance. They wanted disruption, confusion. Their plan was simple: match humans to chosen alien females, and let mistrust destroy both sides from within. They never expected affection, only failure, only chaos. Rex didn't blink as the words played. He stood beside her, arms crossed, jaw tight. He had always suspected something deeper was going on. Now the whole galaxy knew. The footage cut to secret meetings, dark halls, and voices they both recognized. Ilani's own elder cousin was there smiling, agreeing. He was one of them. He had sent her into this like a land to test the fire. Gasps filled the room. Shouting followed. Some aliens pointed at the humans present, accusing them. Others stared at Ilani like she was the problem. A guard nearby reached for his weapon. But Rex stepped between, his voice calm but cold. "She's not your enemy." That night, they were locked in their quarters for protection. The station was burning, not with fire, but with anger, fear, and betrayal. Ilani paced in tight circles, her tail flicking in frustration. "I was part of this," she whispered. "Even if I didn't know, you were used." Rex said gently, "Just like me." She shook her head. "My people wanted you broken, and yours wanted you silent," Rex said. "You chose something else." She sat down beside him, her voice low. "They won't stop even now. Not until someone takes the blame." Rex leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Then maybe it's time we speak." The next day, they requested a broadcast one the council couldn't control. Rex stood before the camera with Ilani beside him. Her hands were cold, but her eyes were steady. The galaxy watched, some with hate, some with hope. Rex told his story first, not of war, but of rescue, of lives saved, not taken. Then Ilani spoke, her voice trembling at first, but growing stronger. She admitted everything: the fear, the mission, the poison she threw away. "I was told to destroy him," she said, "but he was the only one who treated me like I mattered." The silence that followed felt endless. Then the messages poured in. Some called her a traitor, others a hero. But the seed was planted. Doubt had replaced blind obedience. Later that night, Rex sat quietly, watching the stars outside the small window. Ilani approached and handed him something. It was her old communicator, snapped in half. "No more orders," she said. "No more lies." He took it, placed it gently on the shelf beside his book, the one she had almost finished reading. "I liked the ending," she whispered. The dog waited. "Even through the snow," Rex smiled. "He never gave up. Just like you," she said, almost too softly to hear. They didn't touch, didn't kiss, but in that silence, something passed between them. A kind of trust that couldn't be assigned or forced. From now on, whatever came, peace or war, truth or fear, they would face it together, not because of orders, not because of pairing codes or councils, but because they chose it freely. The council chamber was full, but silent. Leaders from dozens of worlds sat in high glass towers, watching two figures walk forward slowly. A human and an alien girl, once strangers, once tools, now symbols of everything the galaxy never planned. Rex's boots echoed lightly across the marble floor. Ilani walked beside him, her posture tall, her face calm. Not a girl hiding in shadows anymore. Not the trembling figure called to serve someone else's will. Now she stood in front of those who once decided her fate, and met their eyes. A voice from the highest panel spoke first. "Do you still wish to remain bonded, despite everything?" The question floated in the air like smoke. Ilani could feel the whole galaxy listening, waiting, judging. She turned to Rex, and he was already watching her, not with hope or fear, but with a quiet question only she could answer. She stepped closer to the speaker's circle, then took a breath. "I was told to fear humans," she began. "I was told they were wild, brutal, and would break me." She looked at Rex again, and her voice grew stronger. "But he was the only one who gave me a choice." A soft murmur moved through the crowd. Rex stepped forward too, placing a small metal tag on the floor, the old one with the names of his lost squad. He spoke simply. "Peace doesn't begin with orders," he said. "It begins when one person stops treating another like property." No applause followed. No dramatic music, just silence. Then the quiet sound of one counselor rising from his seat. "I vote to end the pairing program permanently," he said. Others followed, one by one. Voices steady. It was done. The meeting ended. But the story didn't. Weeks passed, and the space station changed. Fewer guards, more laughter, fewer rules, more curiosity. Some alien girls returned home, some stayed. Some humans left for Earth again, but others began to build something new. Here, Ilani chose not to leave, not yet, not because she had to stay, but because the stars didn't feel so cold anymore, and the room she once feared now felt like a place she belonged in. Rex planted more flowers in the garden. Ilani helped him, even if she still didn't like dirt under her nails. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. But silence between them was no longer empty. One evening, after the lights dimmed and the station grew quiet, she stood on the balcony and looked at the endless sky. Rex joined her, standing beside her without a word. He offered her a small object. Nothing fancy, just a smooth stone with her name carved into it. "I saw this on a supply run," he said. "Thought it looked like you, quiet and strong." She took it gently, then smiled. Not the small polite smile she used to give, a real one, soft and unsure, but real. And then, without planning, she said something she never thought she'd say. "Stay with me." Rex didn't answer with words. He reached out and touched her hand, just once, then stood beside her as the stars blinked above. They didn't need permission anymore. They didn't need a title or a file or a council's blessing. They had survived the program meant to divide them, and now, by their own choice, they were beginning something no one could program, something real, something human, something hers.